Absolutely. And I think the first thing we need to really be mindful of is the word weight loss, because I don't think it's healthy for us to promote weight loss, weight gain. These kind of terms become overused, they become incredibly stigmatized. There's all sorts of social conditioning around what that looks like. And then we're kind of also perpetuating that ongoing diet culture that we want to move away from. And we really don't want kids to get into that space where they're entrenched in a culture of dieting. It's the last thing we want for them. What we really want is to educate kids on what does good health look like? What does it feel like to be healthy, fit, to have that never ending, boundless energy and vitality? And how can they achieve that to feel good about themselves, to promote healthy self-esteem, and also to perform better at school? And some of the things that I think I've really seen over time that have concerned me when it comes to children is that those who are unfortunately in a situation where they are seriously overweight, they tend to often be bullied in schools, and their trajectory for ongoing future life doesn't look great in terms of their performance in school. So I really think it's important to target children and families at a young enough age to teach them good, healthy habits. And definitely, I think in terms of stigmatization, we want to remove words that create ongoing thoughts around weight loss. So I'd really like to think more about what do we do to promote a healthy, happy community of children and of adolescents as they grow through school, where they're not focused on diet culture at all. So that would be my first thing to focus on. How do we actually move away from that? I think what I'm concerned about, especially where kids are spending so much time on their phones, on devices, and social media is such a huge, big part of what they're actually feeding themselves with in terms of information. I see that as being a huge, big issue. What are they consuming? Well, they're consuming so much when it comes to whether it's TikTok or Instagram or whatever platform is their go-to, a multitude of all these social media platforms where they're just spending hours and hours every single day. And they're seeing a lot of fitness models. The ideal archetypal body type is often presented as someone who is not necessarily just doing weights in the gym, but the body shape size is often an unrealistic or unattainable goal for people. And I think they need to see that is actually not necessarily what healthy looks like. Healthy for each individual is different. Body shape, size, and morphology, and our roots, where we come from, all of those cultural different influences. There's so many different things to consider when it comes to body shape and size and acceptability. So really being locked into focusing on some of those typical models online is not necessarily, that's not what we want people to aspire to. We want them to learn about good, healthy habits. And that comes from a foundation of education where we're talking about 100% looking at movement. How much are they moving every day? What are they doing? Finding their thing, really looking into what activity inspires them, helps them feel good. Do they like to go hiking with their friends? What is it that they want to actually do? Is it a team sport? And I think team sport can be great, especially when you're young, because there's so much to learn from being engaged in team sport. The dynamics of being part of a team, that translates later in life to so many different applications. I remember when my son was playing soccer, an expression about what you learn so much with a soccer ball at your feet. It's like a metaphor for life, and also learning what you learn on a field with a team. How do you engage as a team? What does that look like in terms of respect for others and how you communicate? So their communication skills, respect, and so many different things that to be gained from being a part of team sport, but also physical activity, the energy, the vitality, the getting your heart rate up, and all of the other benefits of being involved in sport. So definitely I'd be encouraging some kind of team activity, but also looking at the individual, what works for them. And I think the more active you are, the better you're going to feel. And it shouldn't necessarily be defined by a sport or an activity, but doing lots of different things. The more you do, you're going to feel happier. All those happiness hormones, I'm all for all those great endorphins that get released from exercise. So teaching kids and young adolescents more about they're going to feel great, and it does improve your self-esteem. It's so good for mental health to be out there moving and being active. So that's a huge big part of what we need to educate kids in when it comes to sporting activities. And then diet and nutrition is really key, making sure that they understand the value of getting enough water and not going for those high energy dense sugary drinks that are destroying their teeth. Oral and dental health is so important because out of that poor diet quality, also we see a lot of other diseases that are potentially risk factors through poor dental and oral hygiene, and that comes from poor diet. But also, what are the other things that could potentially be risks for them because they get entrenched in patterns of behavior? We're creatures of habit. So if we're creating those habits young and we've got poor dietary and nutrition behavior styles, we need to try and break that pattern young enough that we're re-establishing or re-educating really good healthy habits to then take those forward into the future and create healthy adults of the future. That is so important. So plenty of water. How many fruit and vegetables are they eating in a day? We see that unfortunately Australians are just not getting enough of what they should be. The recommended daily allowance for fruits and vegetables, we're way at the bottom of the scale when it comes to young people. So understanding where to get good, healthy fuel for your body. How do you fuel your body well to perform at its best capacity? And that really means not just for your body, but your brain. Everything's going to function better. So we absolutely need to learn more about why do we fuel our body with good quality food rather than resorting to easy snacks, things out of packets, or order on Uber because it's easy. There's too much of that, and too much accessibility of those easy options, I think, is also potentially really dangerous for kids because they can jump online and order Uber at any time of the day or night. So we want to discourage that. And I think for parents, limiting access. So not giving them a mobile phone that has access to Apple Pay to make it too easy to just, I'm just going to order a burger at 2 a.m. We don't want that to happen. But unfortunately, those things have become so easy. So I think it's reliant on all of us to look at how do we create a positive change in our environment. It reminds me of a series that was popular many years ago, 21 Up, and it, really focused on the concept of give me a child until he is 7 and I will show you the man. So yes, creating influence at a young age is so important. And by the way, that series followed a group of children from different walks of life in the UK at 7, at 14, at 21 and 28. I don't know if it went on beyond that, but it was really fascinating as a social experiment to see actually what is the influence around the family, the education system, and really brings back that whole reality around we have to impact our kids young. So 100% right that you've got a short window of time to really create those behavior patterns that we hope then will roll out and become behaviors and habits for life. So at 15, yes, it's a lot harder. I also think we've got to be careful with boys, young men 15 to 24 as well, that they're not focused on that really muscle buff look as well, that is reliant on supplements, on sometimes potentially dangerous drugs and certain steroids, and accessing those drugs that can potentially be really full of risk. So we just want to make sure that we're promoting good, healthy images. I also think that there's some issues around this whole body positivity movement, that maybe we're normalizing overweight and that we're creating an environment where it's acceptable. Well, being overweight or morbidly obese is actually unhealthy and carries risks for the future of any individual. We've got to make sure that people are aware that things like looking at your waist circumference, for example, can dictate potential risk factors for cardiovascular health or for stroke or for heart attack. So just having awareness around what does that actually mean? And yes, you can actually create change yourself. That wake up call. So often what I see in our environment with adults who are dealing with overweight and obesity is that they've been in this cycle of diet yo-yo mentality for so many years before they reach out for help. And if we can impact our youth between the ages of 15 to 24 at a much younger age, well, how amazing would that be? Prevention is so much better than cure, and helping our youth, having an opportunity for them to reach out to us, for example, to provide that outlet where they're confident, comfortable, judgment-free, and able to have people who really care about them for the rest of their lives and talk to us now. In this environment, we have nurses and dietitians and psychologists, and we can manage how that looks for any individual at a much younger age, and getting their GPs on board as well, because they can refer with care plans, for example, so that it doesn't have to be a huge cost to a young person to access professional help. So I would say definitely reach out to us, where we can actually look at how do we support them young and work on preventative health and set them up to be happy, healthy, futures are long and amazing. This week had a conversation with a beautiful 26-year-old girl who lives in Airlie Beach in Queensland. And it was such a lovely conversation because I was really excited that she had the insight to actually reach out at 26, and she's someone who maybe needs to lose 10 kilos, but that was, for her self-esteem and for where she's at in life, really significant. It was really lovely to have a conversation with someone who values what that looks like for her health, for her future, for her work, for her relationship, and getting on top of it now rather than waiting until she's 36, 46 and really just tried and setting herself up continuously for another failed diet. That was a really special conversation this week. In many schools, there are pastoral care role of someone who students can actually go to within the school, whether it's their pastoral care leader or a housemaster or a teacher who they feel comfortable with if they don't want to talk to a parent. So looking within their own schooling system, who is it they can talk to who might be able to guide them and lead them right in the right direction when it comes to some professional support if that's what they're looking for. Things like the Butterfly Foundation, I know, is one organisation for those who are dealing with eating disorders, can be really helpful. Beyond Blue, Lifeline, there's a lot of online resources, and even your own local doctor. Go to your GP, talk to your GP. They're the ones who should be able to influence how you get through creating opportunities for change. And coming to see us, if you feel like I want to do something about my weight, my health, my future, and think about it now, we're really the best possible, resource that you could tap into. And in a way, it can be a bit of reverse engineering. What I love more than anything, the multi-generational impact that we've had on patients over 20 odd years. Not only have they lost weight and supported their kids, but also their grandchildren. What about the youth of today? Once they start to get control of their health, they're going to influence their families and their parents and help them to be healthier, happier individuals as well. So that reverse engineering of let's get the kids on board so that we can support them to understand more. I'd love to help as many as I possibly can. And there's so many different ways that we can help young people. There's short-term medication solutions backed by research and evidence, and working with a team of health professionals to employ that and make sure that we're going to get sustainable, durable, long-term results. But habit change is what we really need to work on. Something that I loved this year, we've just recently had Gold Coast Marathon here, and I absolutely love that event for our patients. But it becomes more than just about for patients wanting to really set goals for themselves and to walk or run or do whatever it is and engage with us as a community and attend boot camps, but they bring their families and their kids. So having influence on their kids to bring them on board to do things like that, that's fantastic. And kids of any age, by the way, we had 10-year-olds and we had 20-year-olds, didn't really matter. Finding that common denominator where you can also engage as a family, I think that is also really key. So maybe if the tough conversations are challenging, what about an activity that involves the family to get out and about and doing things that everyone's happy with? Because that could really help a lot. And I also think for me, dinner time has always been the opportunity to sit, chat, and have conversations with family. We've talked about this before, but we've lost the art of dinner table conversation. So, turning the TV off and setting aside time every day where you actually gather together at the table as a family. Put your phones down in the middle of the table, no phones at dinner. It's all about conversation and really getting back to asking, how was your day? I think we've lost that art of what dinner table discussion looks like because we're all busy, 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 on the go. It could be takeaway on the way home or after some other activity. So let's try and find even a few nights a week where you get together again as a family and bring those values back into family life. I think it can make so much difference. Look, we know that TikTok is probably one of the most highly utilized platforms for youth between 15 and 25. And I noticed that there was a trend, I think it started about a year or so ago. And I love this because it was just fun and engaging, and it was all about that silly little walk. It was people looking at getting outside, getting active, walking up a hill, or whatever that looked like to deal with mental health. Have a look at that silly little walk because it's fun, it's light-hearted, but it's actually really focused on mental health. And I really love that. Some of the TikToks that I've seen so many different people post, even in parts of the world where it's tough to get out in freezing cold conditions and go for a walk in the snow, it's really funny. But getting out and breathing fresh air, no matter what time of day, you can treat yourself through actual positive energy and approach to just getting out and going for a walk. And I think it's really key that we focus on platforms and opportunities to really understand that there's links to mental health here. So we want to make sure that we're kind of addressing these issues young enough now and getting on top of it so that we're using holistic, healthy approaches to managing mental health as well. That's super important. I just don't want to see kids resorting to medication to treat things like anxiety and depression too young because it's just setting themselves up on a path that could be a long-term path along that same route. So redirecting them to change now would be my philosophy. I'd love to help whoever's out there who wants to put their hand up and say, hang on, I'm only 16, but I've got a few kilos to lose and I don't feel good in myself. What do I do? And that's something that we can tackle young. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to reach out and talk to us. Nothing can go wrong with a conversation. This is an opportunity to say, put your hand up and come and see us and we'll help you. You've got nothing to lose.